Absurd moments from Trump's press conference. Donald Trump reportedly walked into the Oval Office yesterday morning, and told aides, "Let's hold a press conference today." What followed was a rambling, incoherent appearance some commentators compared to speeches made by unhinged Libyan dictator Colonel Gaddafi. The president complained the press don't tell the truth and in the next breath lied about the size of his election victory. He claimed to be the least anti-Semitic person you've ever seen, then shouted down a Jewish reporter for being insulting, and asking a question on anti-Semitism. He insisted repeatedly he had no ties with Putin, but would not give a yes or no answer on whether his campaign team had spoken to Russian officials before the election. And he kind of blamed the press for pushing the US closer to a nuclear holocaust like no other. Here's all the most unhinged moments from Donald Trump's baffling press conference. 1. He complained the press don't tell the truth. Trump started his press conference on the offensive. He said he was there to update the American people on the incredible progress his administration had made in his first month in office. But he complained that many of our nation's reporters will not tell you the truth. Later in the 75-minute press conference, he had a to and fro with CNN reporter Jim Acosta, where he not only dismissed the broadcaster as fake news but very fake news. And even the BBC took a beating, with John Sopel being dismissed as another beauty. He said the Beeb were just like CNN. 2. And then he lied about his election victory. He'd barely had time to take a breath after attacking the media for not telling the truth, before he told his first blatant lie. He said his 306 electoral vote victory was, I guess, the biggest electoral win since Ronald Reagan. This is untrue. Every president since Ronald Reagan, with the exception of George W. Bush, won their elections by a greater margin than Donald Trump. Confronted with this falsehood, Trump at first said he had been talking about Republicans. But when he was told of George H.W. Bush's 426 vote win, he said, "I was just given that information, I was just given it, we had a very big margin." The reporter asked, "I guess the question is, why should Americans trust you when you accuse the information they receive as being fake when you're providing information that is not accurate?" Trump said, "Well, I was given that information. Actually I've seen that information around. But it was a very substantial victory, do you agree with that?" The exasperated reporter simply replied, "You're the president." 3. He claimed drugs are as cheap as candy bars. Trump claimed America was becoming a drug-infested nation. He added, "Drugs are becoming cheaper than candy bars." He did not provide any evidence for this claim. 4. He claimed to be the least anti-Semitic person you've ever seen. Towards the end of the marathon presser, Trump announced he was looking for a simple, friendly question. He called on Jewish reporter Jake Turks, who writes for Ami magazine. The reporter started by saying he hadn't heard anyone in his community say he or his staff were anti-Semitic. But he asked a question about a rise in anti-Semitic abuse since Trump's election, which apparently enraged the president. He cut Turks off, saying, "Sit down. I understand the rest of your question." He said, "Number 1, I am the least anti-Semitic person that you've ever seen in your entire life," Trump said. "Number 2, racism. The least racist person." Turks spoke up, trying to finish his question, but Trump said, "Quiet. Quiet. Quiet," and called him a liar. He said, "See, he lied about, he was going to get up and ask a very straight, simple question. Welcome to the world of the media." He went on to say he hated the charge, and that he found the question insulting. 5. He suggested the rise in anti-Semitism was from his opponents, posing as his supporters. Questioned again on the increase in anti-Semitism, some of which is in his name, he said, "Some of it written by our opponents. You do know that? You understand that? Some of the signs that you will see are not put up by the people who love Donald Trump." He suggested his opponents were posing as his supporters and making anti-Semitic comments to further enrage his opponents. He said, "Some of that anger is caused by the other side. They'll do signs, they'll do drawings that are inappropriate. It won't be my people, it'll be people on the other side to anger people like you." 6. He warned there could be a nuclear holocaust like no other if he could not reach a good deal with Putin. Donald Trump says the world faces a nuclear holocaust like no other if he is unable to pursue a good relationship with Russia. And he appeared to blame a string of aggressive moves from Russia on the media, because negative reporting of the Trump administration's links to Russia led Vladimir Putin to believe he could no longer get a good deal with the US. Russia's provocative actions include a spy vessel loitering 30 miles off the coast of Connecticut and the deployment of cruise missiles in apparent breach of international agreements. Trump argued, "When did it happen? If you were Putin, you would say we're back to the old games with the United States. There's no way Trump can ever do a deal with us." He added, "Don't forget, we're a very powerful nuclear country. So are they. There's no upside. Let me tell you, I've been briefed. And the one thing about a briefing that I can say was, nuclear holocaust would be like no other. If we have a good relationship with Russia, believe me, that's a good thing, not a bad thing." 7. He said he'd love to be able to shoot a Russian ship out of the water. 8. Asked by a black reporter if he would meet with black congressmen, he replied, "Are they friends of yours?" An African American reporter asked the president if he would meet with members of the Congressional Black Caucus. He replied, "I would. Let me tell you what. Do you want to set up the meeting? Do you want to set up the meeting? Are they friends of yours?" 9. He said this sentence, "The leaks are real, the news is fake." Trump blasted the media for basing their fake news stories on illegal leaks of classified information. Asked why he fired his national security advisor on the basis of news reports that were fake, he was happy to clarify. He said, "The leaks are real, the news is fake." 10. He made up a story about a congressman canceling a meeting. The president claimed Elijah E. Cummings, of the House Oversight Committee, was due to meet with him about the price of prescription drugs, but canceled it. He went on to say Cummings probably canceled after being warned off by Democrat Senator Chuck Schumer because meeting with him would be bad politics. Cummings says he made it up. 11. Then there were the funny voices and people compared him to Colonel Gaddafi. Trump chose to explain why he doesn't want to reveal too much about his military strategy using a funny voice. It's probably best just to watch it, but it was at about this point in the press conference people started to compare his performance to Colonel Gaddafi. 12. He said Mike Flynn didn't do anything wrong. He said Mike Flynn didn't do anything wrong in discussing U.S. sanctions on Russia with the Russian ambassador before Trump took office, which is potentially illegal. Trump said, "I don't think he did anything wrong. If anything, he did something right. He was doing his job." Asked why he was fired, he said, "The thing is he didn't tell our vice president properly and then he said he didn't remember, that just wasn't acceptable to me." 13. He suggested a future change in career. "I'd be a pretty good reporter," he said. 14. He insisted the Muslim ban had a smooth rollout. Of the travel ban, which is currently suspended on the orders of federal judges, pending appeal from the Justice Department, he said, "We had a very smooth rollout of the travel ban, we had a bad court. And here's one thing he didn't do." At no point during nearly an hour and a half of questions, and despite being asked 3 times for a clear answer, he didn't deny his staff had been in contact with the Russian government during the election campaign. The closest he came was saying he was not aware of it.